I've got 50 cents to my name. That's it. And I have a choice. This bottle of water, or the bus ride back to where I'm staying. I've walked at least 10 kilometers today through the streets of Harare, and I don't think I've ever been this tired in my life. My feet are screaming, my head is pounding from the sun, and all I can think about is an ice-cold drink. I came here thinking living on $5 a day in Zimbabwe would be a fun adventure, a challenge. I had no idea it was going to completely break me. 24 hours earlier, I was standing on this same street corner with a much different attitude. I'm in Harare, Zimbabwe, a country with a complicated history, but a place I'd heard was surprisingly affordable. To prove it, I held up a single US dollar bill, and in my other hand, a full loaf of fresh bread. A whole loaf of bread for just $1. Think about that for a second. Back home, that's basically impossible. With a staple food this cheap, I thought, how hard could it be to not just survive, but actually thrive here on a budget of only $5 US a day? My rules were simple. All my food, transportation, and activities had to come out of that $5 bill. Honestly, I was confident, maybe a little cocky. I pictured myself eating great food, seeing the sights, and finishing the day with cash left over. I was wrong. So wrong. The reality of trying to get by on what I assumed was a reasonable budget turned into a humbling, grueling experience that shattered every single assumption I had about money, value, and survival. This is what really happened when I tried to live on $5 a day in Zimbabwe. Section 1. The morning and the first hard lesson. My day kicked off with a ton of optimism. The sun was shining, the streets of Harare were already buzzing, and I had my $1 loaf of bread. Breakfast, sorted. That's $1 down, $4 to go. This is going to be easy. I walked to a nearby market, thinking I'd grab some fruit. Maybe a single egg to go with my bread. And this is pretty much where my perfect plan started to fall apart. The market was an explosion of color and sound. Vendors were calling out, showing off piles of mangoes, tomatoes, and greens. It was beautiful, but as soon as I started asking for prices, my confidence started to crack. A couple of bananas, a single tomato, the little things added up way faster than I expected. I ended up buying 2 small bananas for 50 cents. My budget was now down to $3.50. It wasn't even 9 a.m. I sat on a bench, eating my plain bread and a banana, and struck up a conversation with a man next to me. He was a security guard on his way to a 12-hour shift. We talked about my little challenge, and he just gave me this patient, knowing smile. He told me, yeah, $1 for bread sounds cheap to me, but that $1 is a lot harder to come by for most people here. He said that locals use combis, these mini bus taxis, to get around, and that would be my next big test. He wasn't wrong. I needed to get across town to see the Harare Gardens, a park I'd heard was beautiful and, more importantly, free. I flagged down a combi, the side door sliding open before it even stopped. I crammed in, shoulder to shoulder with a dozen other people. When it was time to pay, I handed over a $1 bill. The fare was 75 cents. Just like that, another big chunk of my budget vanished for a one-way trip. I hopped out and checked my wallet. I had just $2.75 left for the rest of the day. And it hit me. Transportation was not the deal I thought it would be. In fact, it was my single biggest expense. That cheap loaf of bread was a false summit, and I was just realizing how steep the climb ahead really was. Section 2. The long walk and the hunger pains. The Harare Gardens were lovely, a real oasis of green in the middle of a hectic city. I spent an hour just walking around, enjoying the quiet. But pretty soon, my stomach started to rumble. It was lunchtime. I walked out of the park and started looking for food. And this is when things went from challenging to genuinely desperate. I walked past small restaurants and food stalls, the smell of grilled meat and salsa, the local maize porridge drifting through the air. I glanced at the menus. A simple meal at a cheap-looking place, around $7. That was more than my entire remaining budget. Even a fast food combo was out of reach. My world shrank to what I could find on the street. I found a woman selling roasted corn on the cob. Her price? $1. It felt like a total splurge, but it was the only real food I could afford. I bought one and ate it as slowly as I could, trying to make it last. Money spent, $1. Budget remaining, $1.75. It was now early afternoon. I was hot, exhausted, and the corn hadn't really done the trick. I knew I needed to get back toward my accommodation before it got dark, but I couldn't afford another 75-cent combi ride. So I made a decision. I was going to walk. It was a 10-kilometer walk, 10 kilometers under the hot Zimbabwean sun. What started as a way to save money quickly became a brutal test of endurance. I finally understood why people call Harare Pothole City as I stumbled over broken sidewalks and crumbling roads. The constant noise, the heat coming off the pavement, it was draining me, physically and mentally. After an hour of walking, I had to stop. I leaned against a wall, trying to catch my breath, and felt this overwhelming sense of being alone. People were just walking by, living their lives, and I was just this anonymous, tired guy counting every single cent. My fun YouTube challenge had completely evaporated. This was real. This was a struggle. And the hunger wasn't just a craving, it was a deep, aching emptiness. Standing there, sweating and exhausted, a thought hit me. This whole thing isn't just about my personal struggle. It's about seeing a reality that's so different from mine. If that's something that resonates with you, and if you want to see how this day ends, maybe think about subscribing, because the hardest part was still to come. Section 3, the breaking point. I walked for 2 more hours. My legs were screaming, and the optimism I'd felt that morning was a joke. Every single step was a chore. I saw the vibrant life of Harare all around me. The street vendors, kids playing soccer. But I was seeing it all through a fog of hunger and exhaustion. I finally made it back to my neighborhood as the sun was starting to set. I was completely wiped out. I could feel the dehydration kicking in. My throat was bone dry. I walked past a small corner store, a tuck shop, and saw the refrigerators glowing with cold drinks. I had to get something. I went inside and looked at the prices. A bottle of water was 50 cents, and I knew a bus ticket for the last stretch of my journey, which was still about an hour on foot, was also 50 cents. And that brings us right back to where we started, standing outside that shop with daylight disappearing, holding my last 2 coins, 50 cents. It felt like the heaviest thing in the world. I was facing a choice that 24 hours ago would have been totally meaningless. Water or the bus, instant relief for my thirst, or a little relief for my aching body. I couldn't have both, and that's when it really hit me. This is what it means to be so broke. You have to choose between 2 basic needs. This wasn't a game about budgeting anymore. This was about survival. I bought the water, I stood there and chugged the entire bottle in what felt like 10 seconds. It was the best thing I'd ever tasted. And then, with an empty wallet and a heavy heart, I turned and started the final hour-long walk home in the dark. My $5 challenge is over. The next morning, I woke up and bought a full breakfast. I took a taxi. For me, the hardship had an expiration date. It was a temporary experiment, something I could just walk away from. But this is the part that's hardest to swallow. For so many people in Zimbabwe and all over the world, this isn't an experiment. There's no off switch. That choice between water and the bus, between a meal and medicine, is a daily reality. I was so naive coming into this. Yes, a loaf of bread costs $1, but that number is meaningless if you don't understand local purchasing power. While you might hear positive news about Zimbabwe's economy, with some World Bank projections for GDP growth around 5% in 2026, the daily struggle for many is shaped by other forces. For instance, inflation is expected to remain in the double digits, which puts a constant squeeze on household budgets. It was humbling, to say the least. We see a low price tag and just assume a place is cheap, without thinking about the economic reality that shapes a person's life there. Living on $5 a day didn't make me feel like a savvy traveller. It made me feel powerless. It gave me the tiniest window into a life of constant, grinding decisions that most of us never have to make. This journey broke me, but it also built me back up with a new kind of empathy. I came here looking for an adventure, and I left with a lesson I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Thanks for watching.